All right, good morning. Welcome back to Daybreak on this 29th day of June 2021. It's a very important day because this is the day that the Court of Appeal hearing, as far as the BBA appeal is concerned, begins. We expect the battery of lawyers to begin the process, of course, with the bench presided over by one Justice Daniel Musinga, who is also the chairperson, or rather the President of the Court of Appeal. So that should be starting at about 9 o'clock. We'll be sure to bring you that as soon as it begins. But it's also the week that is very defining for that process because the hearing continues until the 2nd of July. That should be this Friday. So after that, then the judges will retire to go and consider what evidence will have been adduced before them and make a determination that is expected to come probably in a month's time, and therefore give guidance on what should happen. So be sure to be talking about that later on the show, but also looking at the dailies, what they're saying, the front page of the Standard, you'll see which way BBI. The big battle starts. That's the story I'm referring to. The stage is set, the players have taken their positions, and the referees are at hand to determine what could be the mother of all court battles this year. I will get to that later on. Then on the front page of the Daily Nation, the story of the return of Jimmy Wanjigi, the Daily Nation saying that he sent them a text saying that I will be in the race. He told the nation in a short text message, and how his entry will rock the country's politics is unclear for now. The story is on page 6 to 7 of the Daily Nation. So they are saying that the businessman has been in the thick of Kenyan politics ever since he joined the Kibaki campaign in 2002. In other moment, only DP Ruto can match his wallet in bankrolling campaigns. I don't know how they did that determination, but all the same, that's the story there. Then on the front page of the still on the Daily Nation, Ruto, what Mount Kenya politicians are fearing. Fear of crowded primaries in DP Ruto's UDA alliance fuel the establishment of fringe parties in the region. The story is on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Ruto fear behind scramble in Mount Kenya to form alternative parties, and most of the parties support DP Ruto's presidential candidature, but deep suspicions persist. And I want to begin there by introducing the panelists that we have in studio. We have Richard Onyonka, Member of Parliament for Kitutu Churches South constituency. Welcome back to the show.
Good morning. Good morning.
Priscilla Nyokabi, the Commissioner from the National Gender and Equality Commission. You've been away for quite a bit of time. Welcome back. Sylvia Kasanga, nominated Senator from Wiper Party. Karibu sana.
Asante sana, Sam.
And Senator Isaac Mwaura. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Thank you so much for making time for us to have this conversation. So there are so many stories. I don't know where to begin, but I think we can begin from the report that came out the day before yesterday. That is from Mzalendo Trust. They're indicating on the parliamentary scorecard of the National Assembly and the Senate in the year 2020, giving details of how active or how outspoken members of parliament were. We may have a look at some of the slides that tell us about those that may have been silent for the better part of 2020. Do we have that we can look at the 31 members of the National Assembly who said nothing? Is it because they had nothing to say or they never got an opportunity? We're waiting for that so that we're in a position to look at that, but also know that senators, 3 senators, that is Senator Gideon Moi, as well as, let me get that, the silent senators, we have Senator Gideon Moi, there's Victor Prengei, and one Philip Mpaye being quoted as being said to have said nothing in the year 2020. Then the silent MPs, among them Alfred Sambu, Abdi Shirie, Amina Gedo, Imran Okoth, George Aladwa, Oscar Sudi, Rose Museo, Gideon Conchela. These are people that also were on record as having said nothing in the year 2019. And in the other list, we have so many others, including Richard Onyonka. What happened in 2020?
I think I spoke once. The truth is, this hasn't been a normal year in terms of our engagement and participation in the House. Sammy, the truth is there's been COVID. Number 2, that House has such a huge number of members of Parliament that when you go there, the Speaker does not, or the Speaker's panel doesn't use previously what was there. You see, previously if you were a 2-termer or a 3-term MP, you were given priority in terms of seniority. for you to contribute. Now, it is what is called Sokohuru. So you walk in, if you find there are about 80 guys ahead of you, you have to wait until you are the 81st. Number two, I don't think the ability of one to speak in the House or not to speak doesn't mean it doesn't perform. I completely disagree with the analysis they've given. But again, it's political. Somebody's trying to say how useless some of us could be.
Who's that? Who is trying to do that?
Whoever, the Mzalendo Trust guys, I don't know who they are, but why they would do such, I wish they had gone to the constituencies and found out what the members, what the constituents are saying.
Well, their scorecard is limited to the contributions before the House, and should it worry Kenyans that some of their, you said that you spoke once, but should it worry Kenyans that their representatives do not even get an opportunity to speak because they're saying that half of you, 175 members of parliament of the National Assembly, spoke for less than 10 minutes in 365 days. Of course, not all days are parliamentary, but should it worry Kenyans?
No, why would Kenyans worry about it? The bills are being passed, the contributions are, those who are able to speak, I mean, under the collective responsibility of us being members of parliament. If, for example, my friend Chris Wamalo speaks about a certain matter and he has made contributions which are reasonable, I don't have to repeat what he has just said so that you're able to see that I've spoken. According to me, this is really a non-issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Nyokabi, you are in the 11th Parliament and you are Vice Chair also, so I don't know whether that helped you to get more opportunities to speak, but should it bother Kenyans that a whole 31, of course that list including Faisal Abdel, who was elected towards the tail end of the year 2020, so I don't think that name should be there, but should it worry Kenyans that members of Parliament do not get sufficient time to make contribution to debate on the floor? Or some of them do not even say anything?
No, I don't think the Kenyans should be worried because you know what happens in Parliament is not just speaking on the floor, there's also a lot of committee time.
Yes.
So it is indeed true that you don't get as much time on the floor, but there's a lot of time for the representation work in committees, and committees are much smaller, they meet more times of the week, and there is sufficient time. But what worries us most, especially as the Gender Commission, is the space for women members of Parliament to speak on the floor. That really does worry us because it should then be sufficient time for women members of Parliament because, you know, the floor, we actually call it show time. And if you don't get show time, there's even prime time on that floor. The hours between 2:30 and I think about 3:30. After that, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you're on the bills and it is no longer prime time. So we don't get as many women on the prime time. And the effect of that is that during re-election...
Why is that the case?
Many reasons, including what you spoke earlier about. I was, for example, vice chair, and the chairs and vice chairs of committees move bills, move table motions, table reports, so they get a little bit more time. And in any case, there's a priority list. The ranking members, older members of Parliament get more time. A lot of women are newer members of Parliament. So all of those conditions. So the problem with that is that during re-election, your opponents then are going to use this information. In fact, this information is not for now. This information is for re-election. And it is not a good thing to have a boo-boo MP. No constituency wants a boo-boo MP. And we don't want women to be in the boo-boo list. We want women to be part of the those driving the agenda of the House. But in the end, many reasons, including that some members of Parliament are honestly a lot better on the ground than those who speak on the floor of Parliament. It's just a mixed bag in there. But for us, that mixed bag should include the women.
I'm looking at it, and in the National Assembly, the top male MPs that spoke for the longest, Kimani Ichung'wah with 203 minutes, Joseph Kirui Limo, 198 minutes, Ole Sankok, 137 minutes, Chris Wamalo, 137, and Robert Pukose, 112. For the top female MPs, Millie Mabona, 166 minutes, Sabina Chege, 130, Gladys Wanga, 100 minutes, Rachel Nyamai, 69 minutes, Eve Akinyobara, 40 minutes. I think Nyamai, Wanga, and Sabina are all chairpersons, but for Gladys, I think it was not for the full year. But Senator Kasanga, when you go to the Senate, the members there are able to speak more, because if you look at the distribution of those that spoke, even all the female senators that spoke are all nominated. And someone like Senator Sakaja spoke for 554 minutes. Is it because of the numbers, or you guys have more to say?
That he's also a chairperson is also to say. But let me first start by saying that Mzalendo Trust, I like what they're doing. After all, Parliament is a matrix for accountability for government. So it's important that once in a while we get to see the performance of members of Parliament. And I think Mzalendo Trust is one of the few that we can trust. You know, we've seen a lot of other, what do you call them, these scorecards that come from other groups of people who you can't really trust. In fact, I remember one time being asked to pay so that, you know, I can be featured in one of those polling.
Is that so? Which
yes,
one was
yes,
that?
I cannot say it here, but it happens. So Mzalendo Trust, is good that they get their record straight from Parliament. So it's an honest record, you know. But that said and done, is true what the Commissioner is saying. A lot of work does happen in the committees, and it would have been good if Mzalendo would extend, you know, their eye into the performance of the committees. You know, last year was a tough year, and a lot of the time we didn't sit fully in the House because of COVID. But the committees were activated, and there was a lot of work. I can tell you there was a lot of work in Senate. All our committees were fully activated through the COVID period, in as much as we sat probably once a week, which was very tight for people. But that to say it is true, Senate, we get to speak. We get to speak. It's a good place. You get to express yourself, and you get to put forward your points in as much as possible. And the space for women, just to touch on what the Commissioner was saying, we have space as women in Senate. In fact, women have been the drivers of the order paper largely, and Senator Maura here can confirm, and especially the nominated members. So we can say that has been good. But also it's important that Mzalendo really does look into these things sometimes when they put them out there. You know, like a member of Parliament like Honourable Rose Museo, last year was very busy with the BBI. So there was no way she was going to be in the House as well. So, you know, they need to also protect some of these things when they put them out there. You know, suffice it to say, they might really affect, you know, the perception of that member towards the public. Yet that member was actually very busy doing, you know, work for Kenyans as well. So I think that balance is really important for Mzalendo Trust as they do it. But most important is the hope that Kenyans can also wake up to the work of Parliament. You know, sometimes a large group of Kenyans are not, they don't take interest in what happens in Parliament. So I'm happy when this conversation comes, so that as we move towards an electioneering period next year, you really want to know what your member of Parliament has been doing, because the work of Parliament is largely that of oversighting, of accountability of the government. So you want to be sure that your member of Parliament is actually doing that work.
Okay.
And it would be good if the work of committees can also be brought to the fore. That is the one thing I am missing out here, because Kenyans don't know, unless you go to the media, like what we were doing last year in the COVID ad hoc committee of COVID. It's difficult for Kenyans then to follow through what really happens in the committees.
Okay.
So a lot more still needs to be done, but this is a
of course, even as you say that, it attracts attention when you have 8 members of Parliament that since 2019 until the end of 2020 had nothing to say, even as you said that the numbers may be high. But Senator Maura, so you look at the numbers at the Senate, people able to make contributions, whether they are nominated or they are elected, and you compare that to what is at the National Assembly. If you don't get sufficient time or good opportunity for you to speak, as Honourable Nyonka says, does it therefore make a case against high numbers, especially for constituency representation?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. I think a good legislator will always be a good legislator. And Mzalendo does a very good job in terms of ranking, in terms of the number of persons who speak. I can see in the list of the Senate, listed in the leadership at the top 10 people who spoke. And Mzalendo also does actual legislation by the end of the year. They usually give awards. And I think Senator Kasanga won last time. I was the first winner in 2015. I was the runners-up, I think, last year. So it actually revolves around how do you participate actively on the floor of the House. And that should not be gainsaid. Currently, for example, I have the highest number of bills in the Senate, actually, 5 of them, to be precise, together with Agnes Zani, for example, who follows me. So that needs to come out, because the work of a member of Parliament is largely defined in a Westminster model kind of thing. So it's about it's about legislation, oversight, and representation, but particularly the bills, motion statements, and all of that. Of course, those who are in leadership get more chances to speak, and that is an undue advantage. But even then, there are some chairs of committees who do not really, are not as active because their matters may not be as well canvassed. But I also want to say that There is the other side of a member of parliament, of attending to funerals, of running CDF, of going to weddings and things like those. I mean, those ones, people judge. I think the jury is at large. People will say, uko namna gani kwa ground, you see. And the way people speak in the public rallies is very different from the way you articulate on the floor of the House. Now, interestingly, some of the people who are said not to have spoken last time, people like my good friend, member for Wesambu, they still made it back. Rose Moseo was still in this list. So I don't think members of the public really largely depend on this. It's just one form of a scorecard. But I would want to say there's a lot of consistency. When you find some people who are ranked, it does not necessarily mean that because they are ranked in parliament, on the floor of the House, that they are not also active on the ground. If you can get those two right, that you can actually be, shining with your views and motions, and also you're active on the ground, then you are the quintessential member of parliament, right, either a senator or a national assembly of Kenya. Because in other jurisdictions, then the work of Mzalendo Trust would just suffice. Yeah.
Right. Honourable Nyonka, as you respond, I would want you to respond to this, because I'm just reading what has been captured by the Mzalendo Trust report. The Constitution provides the following to be the job of your member of parliament: represent you and fellow Kenyans, including special groups in the constituencies, discuss issues that concern you, make national laws, discuss about taxpayers' money, and decide how much the national and county government, including state organs, will get, and keenly monitor the president and deputy president and other state officials and ensure that they respect and implement the Constitution. So I know at the constituency level you have so much work to do, whether it's about the CDF implementation, monitoring the concerns of the people, but how do you help the rest of the country in playing that very important role of a member of parliament, apart from voting on what should be the business on the floor of the House?
Thank you. I'm listening to what my brother Maura said, and it's true. But I'll tell you one thing that has surprised me frequently. For example, explain to me how Honourable Jacob Midiwo would lose his seat. Explain to me how Boni Halwale lost his seat. I mean, these are guys, these are gentlemen who are on the floor of the House in the last two parliaments, and their contributions were just one, articulate, important. They would discuss the critical issues, and yet when you went to the ground, Maura, they lost.
That's true.
So the point I'm actually trying to raise here is that yes, it is important for a member of parliament to contribute and to participate in raising the critical issues on the floor of the House. One, the current constitution is different from what it used to be before. If you go to the 8th parliament, for example, the debates and discussions which we used to have, were instant, because the minister or the assistant minister will come and is asked questions. The question will be asked either in the morning, and the answers will be given in the afternoon, or the questions will be asked the previous day, and the answers had to be given on that particular day. The responses were instant. Right now, we are at committees. The discussions which we are having at committees, for example, I sit on the budget committee, we spend so much money, so much time as we've been running through the BPS, as we've been sitting through the discussions, debates. Right now, we are discussing issues of the supplementary estimates which are coming in the next 1 week. You don't see that publicly. Mzalendo doesn't come and sit in our committees and say who spoke in that committee and what was the contribution. The reality is, like my able leader Nyokabi has said, the politics of prime time, of going to be on TV so that your voters see you and they're able to tell how serious you are and how you articulate their issues and what your contributions are, does not necessarily make you get re-elected. Okay. Yeah. The voters look for much more than the discussions and debates which are taking place in Parliament.
I just wanted to correct that. Jacob Midiwo went for governorship Siaya. Yes. That's a different seat. Boni Halwale went for governorship Kakamega, very different from
the point. No, get me out, Sam. The point I'm making is this: given their performance, given what they had done over the 10, 15 years they were in Parliament, shouldn't that have made the voters realize that these are good legislators? That's my point. Okay, yeah. All right. There is no relationship completely between how you will be elected, or why you would be elected, and what is happening on the ground. Maura just said, vitu kwa ground wanga tofauti boss. It is nothing to do with what we make noise at on the floor of the
Okay,
house.
Honourable Priscilla, you have something to say.
Yes, I wanted to follow up on this point about the parliamentary system. It is indeed true that this presidential system is also a little bit difficult because you are asking fellow members of parliament questions that should be asked to the executive. And Kasanga got it right that members of parliament come to oversight the executive. It is going to be very important, which is some of the changes that you see coming on to BBI, that the executive is also drawn from the House. There's a sense in which the system we are in now is even not encouraging you to speak, because if you are asking for water for the people of Nyeri, for example, for me, and you know our Kenyaite man, he's been on this water thing since 1984. I mean, if I want to find out where the water is, there is no point of me asking the chair of the water committee. The best person to be there would have been the Minister of Water, so that we can ask the Minister of Water where is the water for Nyeri and for, you know, Kisii and all the other places that we come from. So there's a sense in which this particular system and Mzalendo should actually go to as far as those questions.
Right.
Not just find out why people didn't talk and that 175 didn't talk. Let's talk also about the system itself. Is this system even amenable to better representation? And what we are finding, not just in Kenya, but in African countries, a hybrid system that is very close to parliamentary, where then parliament is oversighting an executive that is present in the House, both at national level and county level, is a much better model than what we now have with the presidential system. With COVID now, that Sylvia Kasanga, the senator, sits on as chair, half of the answers are with Cabinet Minister Mutahi Kagwe. So it is much better than Mutahi Kagwe is, even Sabina Wanjiru, who's a good friend and who speaks a lot, as you see on the list, and happy about the women who are there. Millie, even much more marks because she's not even a chair of a committee.
Right.
But then even the questions that you want to ask, for example, about COVID and the money and the vaccine, and whether we are producing local vaccine here in the country, those questions are with the executive. The minister is not in the House. You have to ask Sabina or the chair of the committee or Sylvia, then they send the question to the Afia House, then you wait, I don't know, for a month, then the answer comes, then it is on some list, it was on some order paper. You can't even have the supplementary question time. So it is actually time. Even the Prime Minister, the reason we want the Prime Minister back is for the Prime Minister's question time, so that then Parliament can be vibrant. And if you follow the UK model, the Westminster model that Maura spoke about, that is why their Parliament is vibrant. But a Parliament in which you ask a question today, to receive an answer, I don't know, in the future.
It takes six months.
But the concern has already shifted.
Yeah.
People have given up on the water.
Yes.
but that, because now you mentioned the Building Bridges initiative, if members of parliament are not able to say or make contributions on the floor of the House, does it make a case against, for instance, the 70 new constituencies, yet you have a member of parliament who can actually represent a larger constituency, for instance, Kieni, without necessarily needing two members of parliament who either way will not have anything to say or will not have time to say whatever they may want?
Those are two different principles. What happens with the representation of 70 is equality of the vote. That in the end, the people of Ruiru, like where Maura comes from, we need one member of parliament for 132,000 people. And we cannot have one member of parliament representing 300,000 people when another one represents 20,000, 50,000, 80,000. So that unfairness is what we're trying to correct. That whatever quality of representation we have, can we then have it equally? You know, but it would be much better if we have better quality of representation. In any case, we are saying the roles of a member of parliament are not just speaking on the floor. You have to get that point from Mheshimiwa here. There are many more roles of parliament, and there are many more roles of a parliamentarian, including an agent of development. So those other roles continue, and the equality of the vote is important. In Senate, it is equality of counties. That is why the 47 counties are equalized. In the National Assembly, it is equality of the vote.
All right.
So you have the two principles.
All right. I want us to conclude on this. You had something to add before we take a short break.
Just as much as I support BBI, that's one of the things I had wished they had looked at. The truth is, we are 410 members of parliament in that house. Even when half of us are able to attend the debates and discussions on the floor of the House, tell me how many can speak. Even the space itself that we are talking about right now, if you are going, I mean, the truth, the issues that are being raised about increasing the numbers of members of parliament is a legitimate issue on both sides, because like she's saying, there has to be this equitable representation, fairness, or rather equity, to have a certain number of constituents being represented by a member of parliament in terms of resource allocation and all that kind of stuff. But my point is, honestly, when you look at, since the new constitution of 2010 and what was before, because I was in the previous two parliaments, my conviction is the quality, the time, the space that we spend on the floor of the House to debate and discuss issues of national interest has actually degenerated. That is my honest observation.
Because of the high numbers?
Because of the high numbers. In other words, if you look, if we had, for example, we have got 47 counties. I don't think there was anything wrong with us having 47 members of National Assembly. I believe the quality.
No, 94. Man and a woman.
Oh, man and a woman. It could have been. It could have been even the 47 times 2. I mean,
right.
these are issues.
We're getting into a conversation that should be in the next segment. Allow me to take a short break. When you come back, we'll start from there. Do text in your views. So much feedback already coming through on people raising questions, on people who don't say or who appear to have been silent in Parliament in 2020, and also talking about how someone said that one Senator Boni Halwale gambled with his position. He would have made it as a legislator, but he was going for governorship. Wow, that's your say. We'll sample some of that after the break. Stay tuned.